BBC Breakfast. Best known as the DJ who turned a whole generation of British punks onto reggae, Donletts has spent most of his career directing videos or producing music behind the scenes.
And now, almost 50 years since he started in the industry, Don is releasing his first solo album. Let's have a listen. Now. Already started because Don's with us. Morning.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
So that was you in Jamaica.
Yep.
Yeah. And you were just saying, because you're known for your filmmaking, you made all of your own film on a mobile phone. Is that right?
Yep. It's made on a phone. Yep. Mind you, the technology is there for you to do these things, but you still need a good idea.
And a good eye.
And a good eye.
Exactly.
And a good eye.
Was it a bit challenging? So you're directing your own video for your own song?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, with more than 300-400 videos under my belt, it wasn't too difficult. Let's put it that way.
I mean, those videos were spectacular. What have we got? We've got a list of them here. Musical Youth, Psychedelic Furs, Fun Boy 3, The Pretenders, Elvis Costello, and now your own work. This is your first solo album.
I'll interrupt you there. Actually, the last video I did was last year, and it was for Sinead O'Connor.
Right.
That was the last one I did. I'm immensely proud of it. Sadly ignored, as she was by everybody until she died, and then everybody's like, oh, Sinead, hypocrites.
Well, it's a point. A lot of people made that point at the time. And did you get to know?
I've known Sinead. I was an acquaintance. I've known her for about 30, 40 years. And I think it's public knowledge that she was struggling her whole life. And in a weird way, she kind of ended up where she was always heading.
I guess, because we said in the intro, you've been in the industry for 50 years or so. Over that time, and I suppose, you know, what happened to her, sadly, you will have seen over time loss. You'll have known people you've lost, friends from the industry and whatever. So is the album a bit philosophical?
Not really. It's the product of COVID lockdown. And lockdown was interesting because what was good about it is it gave you a lot of time to think, didn't it? But what was bad about it was that it gave you a lot of time to think. And I guess I put what was a dilemma, I combined that with 67 years of living, and that provided the kind of inspiration for the lyrical content of the album.
Can I just, I'm always really wary, Don, of saying what someone's music sound reminds me of. Dare I do this with that song?
You're going to do it.
I'm going to chuck it out there now. I had a hint of Injury and a hint of Madness, the Specials, or some of that in that particular song we just heard. What do you think?
That's really interesting because they're both artists that I really, really like and know. And yeah, I'm honoured to be in that lineup. I mean, you have to understand, I was in the band before in the 80s called Big Audio Dynamite. And famously, I can't play anything. No, really, I can't. I play ideas, I don't play instruments. So to justify the space I occupy, because you need to do that in this business, otherwise you're baggage, you know, I put a lot of attention into the melodies and the lyrical content. And I guess that's what struck a chord with you, hopefully.
No, definitely. It jumped out at me a little bit.
And I'll tell you another thing is that, you know, when I went to the record company, they're like, yeah, great, Don, you made a record, we've got to engage with the young. And I'm like, forget the young. This record is age-appropriate and unashamedly grown up. But bearing in mind, as I say on the first song, age ain't what it used to be. And that's because of music. You know, it's changed the landscape. My generation, we didn't become our parents. You know, we've still got interested in contemporary themes. And also, we've got the money. We can actually buy the records and afford to go to the gigs and the festivals.
Yeah. How different is it for you, having worked with so many artists over the years and, you know, the music directing and all the rest of it? How difficult is it for you to put yourself out there in such a sort of personal way on your own album?
That's a good question, although I was taken to task last year. Somebody made a film about me called RebelDread. That was a plug, folks. And it was a horrible experience. It was like being on a therapist's couch because all of a sudden the story was about me. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not the story. The story is the culture that made me. So that was uncomfortable, but apparently people liked it, so result.
So it's OK putting yourself out there, in a way. You got a bit more used to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I've served my apprenticeship, put it that way.
Yeah. Can I ask you, you right at the beginning of the punk era, and you were there in those days.
Yes, I'm that old.
And you had that kind of attitude, and that was the time. Just do it, just get out there.
DIY,
do
it
you
yourself.
think, in a funny kind of way, there's a parallel now because of social media? Because if you make music, you can stick it out there because you can just put it on YouTube. Do you think there's something going on now that is sort of similar to that, but in a different era?
Well, it's a mixed blessing, really, because, again, I'll go back to my old analogy, is that the technology's there whereby everybody can do it, which is a good thing. It's also a bad thing, because you do need an idea. Just because you can afford it, don't mean you can do it. And it's important nowadays that, if you put something out, it justifies its space, because space is valuable in the 21st century. I think half the problem for artists these days is just letting people know you exist. Never mind whether your stuff is any good or not.
Is that because there's so many people able to create their own music and get it out there?
It's too many piranha in the tank.
Right.
Simple as that,
Do you mind telling us a story about meeting your idols? Can be a good thing, can be a bad thing sometimes. You met Bob Marley when you were very young, didn't you? Because you basically made it happen.
Yep, it's true.
What happened?
You sure you want this on early morning TV?
Is it okay? It's okay, isn't it?
Basically, I went to see him in 1975 at the Lyceum and walked out of there a changed man. And I was so inspired, I followed him and his coach to his hotel and blagged my way in and became friendly with him. Anyway,
you just
literally blagged my way into with the band and everything else. And for various reasons, we struck up a conversation later that night. Cut to 2 years later, Bob's back in London, 1977. He's in exile. He's been shot in Jamaica, and he was staying on the King's Road, Chelsea, just around the corner from a shop I was managing called Acme Attractions. One day I go around there, I'm wearing my bondage trousers, which are sort of punk rock clothes.
Still got them?
No, too fat. And I'm not actually.
You're really not.
I go around and I'm wearing bondage trousers, and Bob had been reading the tabloid press, so he'd got all this negative idea of what punk was about. Nihilism and gobbling, and it was never about that. It was about empowerment, freedom, individuality. And anyway, he's mocking me. He nearly blew it then. He's mocking the clothes that I'm wearing. And I had to stand my ground and say, Bob, look, you're wrong. We're like-minded rebels. These punk rock dudes are my friends. And he basically told me to get the hell out of there. A few months later, a somewhat better informed Bob Marley was moved to write the song Punky-Reggae Party. So I always figured I got the last laugh there.
Yes, absolutely. All because of bondage trousers.
All because of bondage trousers.
Look, Don, it's lovely to chat to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And very quickly, BBC Six Music, change of
Just been
time.
promoted. After 15 years on the late night shift on a Sunday, I'm now prime time, Saturday nights, 9 till 11.
Amazing.
Nice
Don,
promo.
so good to talk to you. And Don's album, Outta Sync, is out
Outta Sync,
now.
out today.
Lovely. Well, it's time now to get the news, travel and the weather where you are.
That's it from me for now. Lots more on the BBC News app and more on that breaking news over on BBC Radio London. I'll be back in half an hour.
Warhorse author Sir Michael Morpurgo.
Good morning, it's Friday the 29th of September. Our main story